If you just bear with me for a second. Okay, the meeting is being recorded, so I'll take this adjournment for today's meeting of the Asset Transfer Panel, and today's date being the 30th of March 2022. Councillor Devlin, I see that you're with us at the meeting. Councillor Horsham is also here, and yourself, Councillor Wilson, you're here. Officers acting in advisor capacity are Tony Finn and Jerry Mays, and Jerry Mays, and there's myself and Pauline McRae and Lynn Wiley from Administration Services. And with that, Chair, I'll hand back to you for the business of the meeting.
Thank you, Pauline. And you'll be aware that we're meeting today following a request from Blantyre Soccer Academy for elected members to review the Officers Asset Panel decision to refuse their request for an asset transfer for the Jockstein facility on Hill House Road in Hamilton. Before opening for comment from panel members, I'll invite our legal advisor, Jerry Mays, to outline the background to the request, and subsequently our resource advisor, Tony Finn, to explain some of the issues that have to be considered. So, Jerry, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. So, as is stated in the report, the legal background to this is that the Community Empowerment Scotland Act 2015 gives certain community groups the right to ask to take over control of local authority assets. There are certain statutory criteria which require to be satisfied, and the key issue, of course, is community benefit when these requests are being considered. I would direct members to paragraph 4.1 of the report, which sets out the statutory factors which must be taken into consideration by a local authority when considering an asset transfer request of this nature. As Councillor Wilson stated, this request was refused by the officers panel, and the review notice is within the review paperwork at Appendix 10 to the report as a decision notice. So, as well as the statutory criteria that are applied when making a decision of this nature, there are regulations which set out the procedure which must be followed when a review has been undertaken. And those are the Asset Transfer Request Review Procedure Scotland Regulations 2016. The main point for in relation to the decision making today is that that first of all, these decisions can't be delegated, must be made by members, and the procedure for decision making is that the members first of all must decide whether there's sufficient information contained within the review documents to enable a decision to be made. And when you're making a decision, again, you're looking at those factors which are set out in paragraph 4.1 of the report. If you are of the view that there is insufficient information contained within the review paperwork, then you require to decide how to proceed. And the two options that are given within the regulations are to either ask for further written submissions or to fix a hearing session. Now, in either of those cases, you must specify what exactly information is lacking. So any notice requiring further written submissions need to specify what those submissions are to be about. And similarly, if a hearing was to be fixed, the notice must be given, which also must specify the matters to be considered at the hearing session. So the regulations are quite prescriptive. They don't make provision for simply a hearing at large for the requester to address the panel on the merits. The process for further submissions or a hearing is directed at obtaining further specific information to allow the panel to make a decision. If you are satisfied that you've got enough information before you today to proceed to make a decision, then your options are effectively to confirm the decision, which has already been made, and that's the decision I've referred to in the decision notice dated 16th November 2021, or to modify that decision or to substitute a different decision. So in terms of the regulations, those are the three options which would be open to the panel today. Now, as I said, the regulations are quite detailed. If you have any further questions or points of clarification, I do have the regulations to hand, and I can check any further points, but hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview as to the statutory framework for today's meeting. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jerry. I now invite our resource advisor, Tony, to explain the issues that are to be considered regarding the request.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My presentation is going to be twofold. I'm just going to look briefly at the application process, what's gone on before, and then I'll get into look at some bit further detail, the issues that you need to consider today. So the facility at Hill House Road, it's made up of a sports centre, a sports pavilion, a synthetic pitch, 3 grass pitches, a play area and an external exercise area. It's currently on an operational lease to South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture. A plan showing the location and extent of the site found in Appendix 2 of the papers. In support of the application, the applicant submitted a business plan, and that's found in Appendix 5. It talks about the intention of the transfer would result in a new model of delivery, which would put the local community at the heart of the decision-making process. And they've also outlined some proposed physical changes, if they were successful, which includes the renewal of the existing 3G pitch, a second new 3G pitch, the creation of what's called a COVID garden, and also the creation of a community garden as well. The applicants also submitted a community use agreement, and this seeks to show how the community access to the facility would be managed. So following receipt of the application, public consultation was carried out in the area surrounding the site. This resulted in 64 letters of support and 351 objections being received. And a summary of the main points received, either supporting or objecting to the proposal, that's found in Appendix 9 of the papers. The appellants, or the applicants, are then given the opportunity to respond to those representations before they finalise their business plan. So the Community Asset Transfer Assessment Panel met on both the 19th and the 25th of October 2021 to consider the application, and they reached the decision that they were unable to recommend to the Council the asset transfer of the facility. And a decision notice explaining the reasons for the decision was issued to the applicants on the 16th of November 2021, and that's set out at Appendix 10. In summary, though, the decision was principally based on a lack of community support for the proposal, which would in turn impact on the deliverability of the community benefits and the feasibility of the financial model associated with the proposed transfer. And other matters included the funding options available to the applicants to implement the business plan, the value of the property compared to the financial model made fit by the applicants, and also implications for existing users and staff. So they've made the request for review, and that's before the members this afternoon. In terms of the matters to be considered, that's set out, as Jerry said, in Section 82 of the of the Act. And summarised briefly in Section 4 of the report before you. I'm just going to go into some of those details in a bit more detail, just to give you a bit more detail to how to consider the issues as you consider the proposal. So in terms of benefits, that's the first heading. Now, in reaching the decision, the authority must consider the reasons for the request and also the information provided in the request, and compare the benefits of proposals with the benefits that might arise from an alternative proposal. So alternative proposals might include another asset transfer request, or another proposal made by the authority or by any other person. And interestingly, if the authority does not consider the property to be surplus, continuing existing use will be treated as an alternative proposal. So in assessing the benefits of the request, you must consider whether agreeing to it would be likely to either promote or improve economic development, regeneration, public health, or social or environmental well-being, or reduce inequalities of outcome which would result from socio-economic disadvantage. Also need to consider the applicant's ability to deliver the proposal that they've put before the panel today. And this involves whether the planned activities would lead to the outcomes suggested in the application, and whether the applicant will be able to successfully deliver the project and make it sustainable in the long term. And this should cover both the funding and the capacity and governance of the organisation. So some issues to be considered include, has the applicant identified all of the relevant costs of the project or activities? Have they identified appropriate and realistic sources of funding? Have they identified how the project will be funded in the longer term? Do the members of the applicants have appropriate skills, experience and qualifications to deliver the project? Or does the body have a plan for engaging people who do? And finally, does the community transfer body have suitable governance arrangements for the scale of the project involved? A third issue is the council's functions. Does it affect our functioning and delivery of service? And this involves considering how any benefits relate to other matters the council considers relevant. And that includes, for example, the functions and purposes of the authority. So, for example, would the transfer contribute to achieving the council's outcomes, or would it have an unacceptable impact on the ability to deliver its functions? So this could be a direct impact, for example, because the community activities would physically interfere with the council carrying out its own operations, or require them to put in alternative arrangements that would substantially increase the cost to the council. We also need to consider if there are any obligations or restrictions that would prevent, restrict, or otherwise affect our ability to agree to the request. For example, legislation might require the council to obtain special permission to dispose of the property. And finally, the final category is other matters, and in particular is reference to community support. Community support for the proposals and any other potential impacts on other community groups who use the facility is important in this respect. So it's particularly important if the request is for the ownership or development of a key site, or if it would change the delivery of services. And this could also result in fewer people using services, for example. So, as Jerry mentioned, the panel has to decide if it has sufficient information to determine the review, and if not, what further procedure is required. If further information or representations are required, the panel should decide what information it needs, from who it should be requested, and whether this could be obtained by means of written representation, a hearing, or any other method. It should be noted that in this case, when submitting their notice of review, the applicant has requested to address the panel and also for a site visit to be carried out as part of the review. The members will be aware that it's for the panel to determine how a case is to be reviewed. So I'll pass back to you, Chair, to take the discussion forward.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Jerry, for outlining the position that we currently find ourselves in some detail. It's now we'll move on to the consideration on how the decision should proceed, and I'll make the point again that this is we're discussing at the moment the information that we have in front of us and whether we think that is enough to proceed on to consider the merits of the application. So not the merits of the application as of yet, just the information that we have before us. As Tony outlined there, the applicant has made the request that we invite them to a hearing and undertake a site visit with them. However, if we feel that we do have enough information in front of us today, then we can progress to the next stage and consider the merits of the application without the requirements for any further information. I personally take the view that we have enough information on the agenda that is sufficient for us to consider the review without a site visit or with out any further hearing or written submissions, but I would open that suggestion to the panel, and I'd be interested to know your views, and I'll be guided by them. So do any of the panel members have a contribution that they would like to make? Are you happy with the information that you have, or would you like any further information before we take the decision about the application?
I'm happy with the information we have. It's quite detailed. Thanks, Chair.
I agree as well, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. So I take it we're unanimous in an agreement that we should progress on and deal with the merits of the application rather than undertake the applicant's request. Okay, so with that in mind, we'll move on to the consideration of the issues and the review of the case. So I'd invite panel members now to share their views on the merits of the asset transfer request, taking account of the information before you, as well as the process to be followed. And also both Jerry and Tony are here to clarify any points that you may have. So I would open it up to the floor to find out what your opinion is on the asset transfer and whether it should be granted or not.
I'm quite happy to come in on that, Josh. I personally, reading the papers and reading all the papers, I really feel that the fact that there is such a large petition of objection about it, and it's not staying, as far as I'm concerned, the asset is not staying within the community, do not want the asset transfer. So in my view, I've got to respect the view of the community, and that's how I feel about it from what's in the papers. Thanks.
Yeah. One of the things that has struck me throughout this process, and I'm someone that's minded, as I'm sure the majority of councillors are, in favour of community asset transfers, is that it's came to light and through Tony's presentation as well, is that the community, or at least the immediate surrounding community, are opposed to the development, and for that reason I would be minded to confirm the decision of the officer asset panel. But Mark, I don't know if you want to come in, and Maureen, maybe you could come in and say that if you agree with me that we should confirm the decision of the officer.
Sorry, Chair. I agree. There is a level of objection there. Probably a question I did have was there any community engagement before they put the application in by themselves, as in a feasibility study, to see what the community actually wanted from this? Because I know, soccer academies are popping up and they're becoming more popular. We've got two down in my ward, one at Lesmahago, and also one within the Douglas area, which is the Glenbuck and Douglasdale Soccer Academy, and they're always looking to expand that. The other thing, going through the objections, is that is just one sport. How does it support other sports and other activities for the community as well? Which I have, sort of concerns with, and I believe some of the objectors have raised that point as well. So, I know there's no extra information, but was a feasibility study and funding for a feasibility study sought from the group, or was it just our own consultation that went out there to the community?
So perhaps Tony or Jerry might be in a better position to advise in the stuff that was done prior to the community asset transfer application being submitted.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm just looking through the papers. It does say that there was a document attached that showed evidence of community support, but I'm just trying to find that, so just bear with me a second, please.
No problem.
I don't know if you're aware, Jerry, if anything was submitted.
Now, I think I can come in just now, Chair. In terms of the let me see, the application form, there's reference to supporting documentation, and I've confirmed that all of the documents that were accompanying the application form have been submitted. There's an assertion and certainly a reference to a degree of consultation having taken place. But I think probably the most I can say at the moment is that everything that was lodged in support of the application is contained within the papers that are before members this afternoon.
I must admit I didn't see anything. It just referenced it, Jerry, and that was as far as I could see. That's how when Mark asked it, I thought, oh God, I've missed something. But no, I never seen anything to support that.
The only reason I asked that, I know, of a couple of big projects which I've been involved in meetings with down in my ward, and I'm sure you have as well. That one of the first things we do is get funding for a feasibility study. They come in, they ask the community what they want, what they would like, everything like that, and they carry out to a high level of detail and very professionally. And I think for big projects like that, there should be that sort of level of consultation, rather than users of the soccer academy saying, do you support this? Yeah, we support this, So I was really wanting to see, get the level of their, their consultation. I know.
Yeah. Okay. So the Soccer Academy are a well-established organisation that operate out of Blantyre and have done for many years. They undertake some fantastic work, not just in Blantyre but out with, and they have undertaken asset transfers in the past, 2 successful asset transfers in the past. But one of the things that strikes me about a community asset transfer is the community have got to be behind it. The community were behind the asset transfer that they had in the past. From the consultation that we have in front of us, the community aren't behind this. For it to be successful, the community have to be, and they aren't. So I would suggest that we confirm the decision of the officer panel, and if that's an agreement with you all, then we can take the next step forward. Is that agreed?
That's agreed. That's fine by me, Josh. I do agree. The community aren't behind it, and it's not just the sports; it's the other communities, the other different groups that use the resource as well. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've taken the decision, I've moved and you guys have agreed unanimously that I'd invite the legal advisor to come in, so Jerry to come in and sum up our decision and outline what the next steps for that would be.
So just check that I'm on. Yeah, so what I need to confirm with you then is if I can refer you to Appendix 10, which is the decision notice, which was issued on the 16th of November 2021, which details the original decision to refuse the request and the reasons for that. I would ask members to please take a wee minute just to have a look at the reasons that are stated in there, because what happens is that the decision, a decision notice has to be issued in terms of to reflect the decision of the panel today. Now, if you agree with the original decision and reasons, then the decision notice can be issued in the same terms. But if there are any of those reasons that you disagree with or that you wish to alter, then an amended notice would be issued.
I have no objections to the officer panel reasons for decision, so I would propose that we agree with what had been issued previously as the statement of reason as to why this panel was made that decision too.
I agree as well, Josh. I've read it quite closely to see, so I'm in agreement with it.
Okay, so if I can confirm then, Councillor Wilson, my understanding is that the decision notice, including reasons, will be in the same terms as the original decision notice. Yes. Okay, thanks very much for that. So that decision notice will accordingly be issued within the statutory timescale.
Okay, thanks for that. I understand that's within 21 days, Jerry.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, great. So there is no items of urgent business, so I'll draw the meeting to a close and thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck, Josh.